Welcome back to Knowledge Resources Speaker Feature. Today we're sitting down with Bernadine Simons, Group Head of People at Meridian Group. Bernadine will be speaking at the upcoming HR Summit this September, and today she will be giving us a quick preview into some of the insights she will be sharing. Bernadine, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's great. Thanks for having me here.
Can you just give us a quick overview? What do we have to look forward to?
In terms of what I would like to bring to the summit, unpack on the day, will be that understanding the strategic intent of business when you consider your technology and your data analytics, and to just really talk around that. Why are you doing it? And then how and with who? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I've coined this phrase or this model, if you like, and I've called it the food chain of people analytics. So, like you've got your normal food chain that we know from biology days at school. You'll obviously have your herbivores and your omnivores, and then you've got to your lion at the top, right? So in terms of our data analytics, you've got your data gathering at the bottom, you've got the configuration of that data, and then right at the top, you've got the insights and the correlations and the strategic goal of that data. So I want to just unpack all those levels, all those steps. What is it going to take to get us there to the top, to the apex of insights? So that'll be the second thing. And then the last thing will be how important it is to give access to information to the newer generations coming through. So we used to talk about millennials. They're old now, hey? They're a millennial's like 30 odd now, right? So we want to talk about Ys, Zs, and Alphas, and how important the access of information, how important access to information is in the workplace, and how they can manage their own data for the business benefit. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm going to spend my time on those three.
I think it's so interesting as well, because I love how you use the word strategic and you're really breaking it down, because I think in the age of big data, it's really intimidating the amount of information you can find out about your workforce. I think it's something that a lot of companies almost grapple with. We have the ability to generate all this data, but we're not really sure how to condense it or to use it for our own strategic uses. Why do you think we've taken so long to move into the data field in people analytics, and what are the main benefits of using data?
Okay, well, let me answer the second part first. Basically, the benefits of using data and analytics is essentially it's the technology and the optimal use of that data will accelerate any entity's competitive advantage. Okay, especially in a world that's always online and data driven. So just to compete, you're going to have to step into that game and into the zone, right? And the benefits, I think, happen in 4 primary areas, which incidentally align with how I see businesses maturing at the same time along the data journey. So for example, the first is that data and data analytics and technology allows for efficiencies, credibility, the ability to reduce paper time, and give you the accuracy and allow more people to access information more easily. So that's kind of like your first benefit, and that's like with companies that are first starting on the journey. And then the second benefit is it allows, and I think I've already touched on this, it allows for the view of the whole organization as well as individuals, what's happening across from a big view and small view. So you can go macro, micro, and you can interchange quite easily on that, and allows you to do your basic reporting for like statutory, etc. So that's like when companies are now moved a little bit further in the growth journey. And then thirdly, it allows for the correlation of seemingly unrelated data and related data. So you can start doing correlations, you can get insights, you can get patterns that can drive data-driven decisions. So like, for example, what do your absenteeism metrics say about engagement? Or how did your increased training spend on specific training mean in terms of productivity? How do you overlay culture survey scores with performance or disciplinaries? What is your true lead time with regards to recruitment and your loss ratios when staff turnover is high? Then you can start doing all of this, like what is the recent spike in sick leave? Is it related to our newest acquisition that we just did? And then you can start planning. If you find out a new acquisition or a new structural change resulted in this and this, next time we do it, we can plan for this, this, and this. So it allows for all of that. And that's the next sort of level of maturity in the data journey. And then obviously, like I said before, the access to information for the new generations. And we need to be thinking how employees can manage their own data and what other data we can collect other than the traditional stuff. I've just spoken about absenteeism, I've talked about some pretty traditional pieces of data, but what about food choices that employees are making and other health metrics? What about pulse surveys? There's a really cool example. Virgin Active, actually, this was years ago they implemented this. When employees would come into the gyms to start work, they would have a little mechanism on the counter where it just had a smiley face, a mad face, and an angry face. And all they had to do was click as they came in. And the COO had a full dashboard of the entire country of every gym. And he could see, just at a touch, who's happy, who's sad, and who's just meh. Just a very simple metric, but it was giving them a pulse. Sorry, it was a her, sorry, it was a she. It was giving the CEO a pulse. So that kind of information, we can do a whole lot with employees managing their own data as well as us managing the data. So that's the benefits of it. And the reason why I think it's taken so long for us to get into the game or to go into big data, well, first of all, it's a lack of understanding of why, how, and the benefits and all of that. And I think it's also the cost and resource allocation. I just don't think when you start really getting into it and you understand it, it is costly and you need a lot of resource, especially in the beginning, and the effort that's required and the change management that's needed. And I also think the challenges are related to integration as well. How do we take this piece, and that piece and integrate it so we don't end up with like 6 different platforms? And there's quite a lot of thinking and design that has to happen in that, and a lot of skill needed when you go into data analytics. And I think those are perceived barriers of entry. It's a 5-day game. And everyone thinks because I click on buttons and I get data, it's a 1-day game, because that's the output. But the actual journey is 5-day. And I think that is, people start and then it becomes tricky, or they just don't start because they're afraid.
So what would your advice be? It's a very intimidating space, like we said, with a lot of challenges. Of course, so many benefits. What would you say to leaders who would want to start this journey, but are a little bit intimidated or are unsure of how to begin?
It's a very good question. Okay, so I think what's very, very important, this is very, very key, and I want to unpack this quite a bit on the day at the HR Summit. I said you need to know the strategic intent of collecting that data, and it has to be very, very clearly defined. And I'm on the HR Summit, I'm actually going to unpack more examples. So for anyone starting the journey, get into a room and decide, why do I need this data? And then what kind of data? You don't need to put in all like, an a learning platform and an HRS platform and a work desk platforms like Slack and to be digital. You need to be strategic. What do I really need and where are we really going? So I think that's a very thing. Get into a room and work it out, and then just start. And you're going to stumble and there'll be some snags and issues, but you just got to be resilient, really.
That's a really great call to arms for data and for analytics, Bernadine. In your experience on going on this journey, you've inspired us now to just go for it. Are there any metrics that stand out to you as being particularly helpful?
There are. And I'm going to put them into 3 categories. The first is strategically. The key metrics you want to use are your talent metrics. So performance over potential, flight risk, impact of that risk of leaving, mobility, aspirations, and readiness. That's very key from a strategic perspective. From a financial perspective, you want to look at staff ratios to revenue and profit. You want to look at, in a manufacturing environment, for example, number of employees to throughput, which will give you a good, strong indication of productivity. And then from an operational perspective, what I find is key metrics are absenteeism and disciplinaries. I call them the absenteeism, I call them show up and grow up, right? So you want to be knowing, because absenteeism costs. So you want to know who and why and what we can do about it. And on the disciplinary side, you will get good indicators of how they're being managed and what could be underlying in your operations. So yeah, I would say those are, for me, just top of mind, those would be the ones I would think would be important in those 3 buckets. Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to getting more of these examples you've spoken of and hearing more about how Meridian does it. What is your hope? What do you hope the attendees walk away from your presentation with? Perhaps some skills or perspectives that you hope will be instilled in them?
I just hope that they, first of all, are inspired. I hope that they are inspired to see the potential of what data can bring. So, and that they do have some practical handles to walk away with. So we're going to practice a little bit. So when I talk about strategic intent, we're going to unpack, use examples. When we talk about design, we're going to play with a few things. And when we talk about actual dashboards, I'm going to pull up actual dashboards and how we not just put them together, how we read them. So I want it to be very practical. So inspired and practically empowered.
I think for anyone who would like to be inspired and to join Bernadine in this call to arms for data analytics, to find out more about it, to find out the practical ways that you can approach it, and to really just get strategic about it, please join us at the HR Summit Conference in September. There will be a link available in the description. Bernadine, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was great, and I look forward to seeing everyone in September. It's going to be cool.